Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. In late July, the Politburo of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, held a meeting, and they decided to convene their fourth plenum of the 20th Party Congress in October. This fourth plenum will have two main agendas. The first one is that the Politburo is going to do a work report to the Central Committee. The second agenda is that the Central Committee is going to examine and to study the proposal of the 15th five-year project proposed by the Politburo. We'll talk about this five-year project in later episode. And we have noticed that news about this fourth plenum, there are some aberrations or even abnormalities involved. And there may be speculations and rumors about Xi Jinping's future. Saying that he might step down in this fourth plenum. Is it really so? So that's something worth discussion today. And we all know that the Chinese communists pay much attention to their meetings, all kinds of meetings. And as a rule, they usually have a Congress, a National Congress, every 5 years. In the interval between two Congresses, usually there are 5 to 7 plenums. And the agendas vary from plenum to plenum. For instance, for the first plenum, every 5 years, they have a minor reshuffle of the high-ranking personnel. Every 10 years, they have a total reshuffle of the high-ranking personnel. For the comprehensive personnel reshuffle, usually they elect a new Secretary General, members to the Politburo, members to the Standing Committee of the Politburo, and members to the Central Military Commission. They have to fill up the posts in the Secretariat and the Central Disciplinary Committee. All these are the so-called leading organs of the party. And that's for the first plenum. And the second plenum usually convened in the second year, in the spring of second year, prior to the convention of the two Congresses, the NPC, the National People's Congress, and the NPCC, National People's Consultative Congress. And in the second plenum, they decide upon the personnel for the government, for instance, the cabinet, the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Ministers, and the ministers. And the CCP usually have their third plenum at the same year of the second plenum, only falls on the fourth quarter. Generally speaking, the agendas for the third plenum is the biggest one. For instance, opening up, reform, major policy change, or even major personnel change. Let me give you a few examples. For instance, the third plenum of the 11th Party Congress held in 1978, Deng Xiaoping came back to power and he announced that we're going to have a reform and comprehensive economic reform, and we're going to open up to the outside world. So that ushers in the era of Deng Xiaoping. And the second example is the third plenum of the 12th Party Congress held in 1984, and they put forward the reform of the urban economic system. And in their third plenum of the 14th Party Congress held in 1993, they vowed to establish what they called a socialist market system. And for the fourth to fifth and to sixth plenum, they're usually held in each following year. And they cover agendas like economy, agricultural problems, and party construction, or reform of administrative systems, and so on and so forth. And as for the last plenum, the seventh plenum, usually it's a preparation for the next Congress. So basically, these are the agendas for the plenums from the first to the seventh. Why then do we say that there are some aberrations or abnormalities involved in this fourth plenum in this coming October? First, of course, it's because of the timing. It's been postponed for almost 1 year. And we have noticed that the third plenum, which was held in July and mid-July, from the 15th to the 18th, 2024, last year, it was postponed for 1 year. So why did they postpone the third plenum, and why are they postponing this fourth plenum? There are many reasons. First is because they are facing so many problems, domestically and also externally. Economy, unemployment, crime rates, massive riots, and the tariff war, and also diplomatic isolation. So both domestic and external problems are abound. And secondly, there are so many speculations and even rumors about Xi Jinping's health condition. will notice that he's been disappearing from the public scene from time to time for a long period of time, a week or two or even longer. And thirdly, we have noticed so many signs of political struggle among the top echelon people, and the degree of the struggle may be very serious, so that we can hear all kinds of rumors released by different groups and camps. And that's all very good indications of political struggle, serious political struggles. A more detailed discussion of the agenda may help shed some light to the issue. According to the official news, the agenda for this fourth plenum will be, like I said, a work report by the Politburo to the Central Committee and the study of the 15th five-year project. But we also know that this is the concluding year for the 14th five-year project. Since this is concluding year, so they have to review the successes and the failures of the 14th five-year project. As for the 15th five-year project, they have to do some planning and to see to the implementation and to raise some funds for it, and then try to figure out the division of labor and coordination between the central government and the local governments. So much for the five-year projects. But we suspect, because of the political situation in Beijing, there may be some hidden agenda for this fourth plenum. The most likely hidden agenda, number one, is the relations with the United States. It's now entering into a tough time of the tariff war between Beijing and Washington, so how they're going to deal with it. And secondly, how they're going to deal with the United States in terms of their national grand strategy. The United States seems to enter into a stage of competition, if not yet rivalry, against Beijing, against the CCP. But then, anyway, it's a tough question for them to deal with. And thirdly, a related one is how to deal with Trump, President Trump. He seems like to be a tough guy to deal with. So it's a headache for Beijing. And that's hidden agenda number one. The second hidden agenda would be very much likely a diplomacy. How they're going to deal with the Ukraine war. It seems that the war in Ukraine is entering into a stalemate. It seems that everybody wants to get out of it, but they are having some difficulty to do that. Second is the war in the Middle East. It seems that Israel is escalating the war against Gaza, and what that may lead to will pose a challenge to the Middle East policy of mainland China. And thirdly, in light of the tariff war, how they are going to utilize this situation in the Middle East and elsewhere, to form a united front against the United States. And these are the diplomatic challenges. And I suppose there's a second hidden agenda. And the third hidden agenda is about Taiwan. Beijing must have noticed that the relations between Washington, D.C. and Taipei have been warming up economically, diplomatically, and even militarily. So how they're going to deal with it could be a hidden agenda for them. And the last hidden agenda is, of course, about Xi Jinping himself, about Xi Jinping's political situation at the time. We've heard all kinds of rumors about Xi Jinping's whereabouts, whether he's going to step down completely, or he's going to relinquish part of his political power, or he's plotting a countermeasure or counteroffensive against all these challenges, and so on and so forth. And the names involved in all kinds of actions or activities are Cai Qi, the number 5 guy in the Standing Committee of the Politburo, or Zhang Youxia, the number 2 guy of the CMC, the Central Military Commission, or even Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao, the former Secretary General and the former Premier, and so on and so forth. But we have noticed one thing, that's for sure. Xi Jinping has been missing more and more often from the public scene. So that might be an indication that he is experiencing some kind of a health problem, or at least some kind of health conditions. So that leads to another question. Could there be a personnel reshuffle in the fourth plenum? Or put it plainly, is it possible for Xi Jinping to step down in this fourth plenum? Although there are all kinds of rumors about it, but I have some reservations about it, much reservation about it. But anyway, let's look back in the CCP's history. Well, let's look back in the fourth plenum of the 12th Party Congress held in 1985. After the discussion of the 7th five-year project, they did retire a good number of the old cadres. Those were purged in the Cultural Revolution and rehabilitated afterwards. But now it was time for them to leave the leading organs. For instance, they agreed 64 old cadres leaving the Central Committee, 37 from the Central Advisory Committee, and 30 people from the Central Disciplinary Committee. That's for the 12th Party Congress. And 5 years later, in late June 1989, a few weeks after the Tiananmen massacre happened in June the 4th, they purged Zhao Ziyang. They stripped him of all his positions in the party. Secretary General, members of the Standing Committee of the Politburo, and the Vice Chairman from the CMC, Central Military Commission. And they elected Jiang Zemin as the Secretary General. They also purged 3 high-ranking cadres from the central body. Those are the ones who sympathized or sided with Zhao Ziyang. And again, another 5 years later, 2004, in September 2004, the 4th plenum of the 16th Party Congress, Hu Jintao officially rose to the position of chairman of the Central Military Commission, and Jiang Zemin was forced to leave the position and give way to Hu Jintao. So those examples illustrates my point. There were examples of purges or personnel reshuffle in the 4th plenum. So what about this coming 4th plenum in the coming October? Will Xi Jinping step down in this 4th plenum, or will he be forced to relinquish part of his power? So what would happen to this 4th plenum in the coming October? My guess is that first, Xi Jinping is facing serious challenge, questions and challenges because of his policy failures in the economy, in diplomacy, and so on and so forth. But secondly, we haven't seen any very clear challenger. Although there are so many rumors about who are challenging him, who are forming a united front against him, and so on and so forth. But we haven't really seen any clear challenger for Xi Jinping. But thirdly, we're pretty sure there are some very serious political struggles in Beijing among the top echelons. And fourthly, so it is still premature for us to predict that Xi Jinping will step down in this 4th plenum, or he'll relinquish part of his power in the meeting, or he's planning some kind of countermeasures against his political enemies. But we know when it comes to political struggles, the Chinese communists are very, how should I describe it, vicious, ruthless, and they'll do whatever it takes to defeat their enemies, and that's for sure. So my gut feeling tells me that it won't be easy for us to predict what would happen now. We may not know what would happen until the last moment, even for the Chinese communists themselves. Well, anyway, we still have several months to go, and there will be so much for us to observe. So let's keep our eyes open. And I think that's all I want to share with you today. I hope you liked today's program. If you haven't subscribed to it, please do so and share it with your friends. Oh yes, do remember to click the icon bell so that you get a notification. I'll see you next time then.